My name is Claire, and I work the closing shift at a small dive bar on the quieter side of Fort Collins, Colorado. It sits just off the highway, but there's also a back entrance locals use to cut through town. The place isn't anything special. Dim lights, old booths, a jukebox that's been stuck on the same classic rock songs for years. Most nights it's regulars who know each other by name, truckers passing through, and the occasional tourist who wandered in by mistake. I actually like it. The routine is steady. The tips are better than you'd expect, and after a while you learn how to read people. The loud ones, the lonely ones, the ones who don't want to be bothered at all. During the week I work alone. No barback, no backup. It's slower, sure, but I still stay alert. We get the occasional fight, and I've learned to notice trouble the second it walks in. That's why I noticed him right away. It was a little after 1 o'clock a.m. on a Tuesday when he came through the door. I'd guess he was in his late 40s, but he didn't look like anyone who usually came in here. He was clean-cut, well-groomed, and calm in a way that stood out. He was wearing a black turtleneck and a dark trench coat. Nothing flashy, but expensive. The kind of guy who doesn't need to show off to prove he has money. He scanned the room slowly before sitting at the bar. His posture was perfect, like he was always aware of himself. When I walked over, he looked at the bottles behind me and ordered something top shelf without even hesitating. As I poured his drink, he smiled and asked if I liked working there. It seemed harmless enough, so I told him yes and made a small joke about bartending being an interesting job. He smiled back, and that was the moment I realized I was going to remember him, because that simple conversation was the start of the longest night of my life. I wish I could say he gave me a bad feeling, but he didn't. If anything, he seemed normal, polite, the kind of guy who looks like a responsible dad cheering at a little league game. Since the bar was quiet, we talked for a bit. I didn't mind. Then he asked me something strange, if I ever thought about doing something bigger with my life. It caught me off guard, but it didn't sound threatening. I smiled and told him I was happy where I was. He nodded, took a sip of his drink, and looked oddly disappointed. After a pause, he asked what time I got off work. That one surprised me. I hadn't felt any flirting from him, and I suddenly realized this might just be another guy trying to get personal. I gave him a vague answer and tried to steer the conversation away without being rude. He didn't push. He just smiled like he already knew the answer. Then he finished his drink, pulled out a crisp $100 bill, set it gently on the bar, and walked out without another word. I didn't know what to think. It wasn't scary, just strange. I figured I'd never see him again. I was wrong. About a week later, he came back. This time, he wasn't alone. He walked in with a woman I'd never seen before. She looked mid-30s but dressed younger than that, stylish but forced, like she was trying too hard to fit a certain image. I paid close attention as they came to the bar. Everything about her felt calculated. The smile, the way she leaned in, the confidence that felt practiced. As I set napkins down, she didn't ask for a drink. She smiled wide and said, "You're so pretty." Her fingers brushed my arm when she said it, just a second too long. I laughed and thanked her, but something immediately felt off. The man stayed quiet, which was strange considering how friendly he'd been before. They ordered drinks. I poured them. Then the questions started. She asked how long I'd worked there, how old I was, little things, but the way she asked made it feel like more than small talk, like she was sizing me up. And that's when I realized this wasn't a coincidence. They came back for me. At one point, the woman glanced at the man, and it felt like they were having a full conversation without saying a word. Then she leaned closer to me and lowered her voice. She said she ran an exclusive event club. According to her, they were always looking for young, fun people for private parties, and I could make up to $10,000 in a weekend. I laughed awkwardly and told her it sounded way too good to be true. She didn't drop the smile. She insisted it was real and said plenty of girls, just like me, worked for them. The words she kept using were fun, safe, and exclusive, over and over. Finally, she said, very casually, "You should step outside for a minute. Someone else can explain it better." My heart started pounding. "I'm good," I said firmly. No smile this time. Right then, a group of customers walked in, loud and laughing. The woman's expression flickered for just a second before she turned to the man. Without another word, they both left. I told my boss and coworkers what happened. We agreed to stay alert, but technically they hadn't done anything illegal. A few nights later, after closing, I saw a car parked across the street, engine off, just sitting there. As I walked to my car, the feeling of being watched made my skin crawl. When I pulled out, the car followed me. Every turn I made, it followed. I didn't panic. I drove straight to the police station. The moment I pulled into the lot, the car sped away. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. A few nights later, during a slow weekday shift, the bar door opened. It was the woman. I quietly texted my boss while she walked to the bar and sat down, smiling like nothing was wrong. She said, "Thought I'd check on you." I told her we were closing and she needed to leave. She pouted and asked for one drink. I figured stalling might buy time, so I turned around to make it. Then I heard the front door click shut. I spun around. She was gone. Through the glass, I saw a black van idling outside. I locked the door just as I heard metal rattling at the back entrance, someone trying to get in. I grabbed a metal shaker, dialed 911 and braced myself. Then headlights flooded the lot. My boss had arrived. The noise stopped instantly. The van took off. Later, the police reviewed the footage. It showed masked people waiting at both doors, one trying to force the back entrance while the others waited up front. The license plate was unregistered. Nothing ever came of it. I don't work alone anymore, but I still feel uneasy every time I close, because I still don't know how they knew I was alone, and I still wonder what would have happened if I'd walked out that door when they asked. I used to work the night shift at a gas station outside Flagstaff, Arizona, a small convenience store sitting alone off a quiet stretch of highway. I say used to because after what happened a few months ago, I'll never work nights again. The place barely saw any business after midnight. Most of my shift was spent restocking shelves, cleaning the counters, and ringing up the occasional trucker passing through. That night is burned into my memory. It was just after 2:30 a.m. Even the trucks had stopped coming by. I was scrolling on my phone, half asleep, trying to pass the time. I stepped outside for some fresh air, rubbing my hands together against the cold. The parking lot was empty, just the pumps, the road, and a dark line of trees beyond. The neon sign buzzed softly, and everything felt strangely quiet, even with the highway nearby. That's when I noticed movement. I turned and saw a man standing behind one of the pumps. I had just been outside. How had I missed him? He was wearing a dark red hoodie with the hood pulled up, hands buried in his pockets. There was no car near him and he wasn't pumping gas. He was just standing there, half turned toward the store, watching me. At first, I told myself he was waiting for a ride, but the way he moved felt wrong. He kept shuffling in small circles, like he couldn't stay still. I went back inside but kept my eyes on him through the glass, hoping a car would pull in and pick him up. After a few minutes, he started walking toward the door, slow at first, then suddenly fast, like he'd made a decision. He stepped inside and came up to the counter. He didn't speak right away. He just stared at me. Then, in a rushed way, he said his car had broken down and he needed help, maybe a jump, maybe a little gas. The story didn't add up. I offered to call a tow truck. "No," he said immediately, "too fast." He just needed a flashlight, maybe someone to help him look under the hood. Something felt off. The way he watched my face, it felt like he was waiting for me to slip up. I asked where his car was parked. He pointed toward the highway entrance, then nodded at the security monitor behind me. I turned to look. There was a car parked out there. For a second, I thought I'd misjudged him. Then my stomach dropped. I had been outside moments earlier. There hadn't been a car. I looked closer at the screen and saw movement near the back bumper. Someone was crouched down just out of sight. And that's when I realized the man in front of me wasn't alone. A cold wave of fear washed over me. I forced a casual smile and told the guy I'd help, but said I needed to grab my phone from the back office first. I turned slowly, careful not to make him suspicious. The second he was out of my direct line of sight, I slammed my hand down on the panic button under the counter. The alarm screamed to life. I expected him to rush me. Instead, he relaxed. All the nervous movement stopped. The urgency vanished. His shoulders dropped and then he smiled, not nervous, not embarrassed. Calm, almost amused, like this was part of the plan. That smile froze me. Then he turned and ran. I rushed to the security monitors just in time to see both men take off, not toward the car, but straight into the trees behind the station. The car stayed put, engine off, lights off, empty. When the police arrived, everything looked exactly the same. The car was still there. The men were gone, no footprints, no trail, nothing. Then one of the officers noticed something I hadn't. The front passenger door was open. There had been a third person inside the car the entire time. I gave my statement and handed over the footage. A few days later, police followed up. The car had been reported stolen nearly a week earlier, over 100 miles away. No one claimed it. No suspects. No explanation. Just an abandoned car in the middle of nowhere. That was months ago. Nothing has happened since, but I quit my job the next day. I'll never work another night shift again, because I still don't know what they were planning or how close I came to finding out.